right, hang on a second. I'm going to read this. All right. The general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form and name of law, is in reality no law, but is wholly void, and in legal contemplation is an inoperative as if it had never passed. Since an unconstitutional law is void, it imposes no duties and confers no power or authority on anyone. It affords protection to no one, and no one is bound to obey it, and no courts are bound to enforce it. When a judgment of any court is based on an unconstitutional law, it has been said that it has no legitimate basis at all and is not to be treated as a judgment of a competent tribunal. And courts of other states are not required to give it the full faith and credit commanded by the provisions of the United States Constitution as to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of other states. An unconstitutional law cannot operate to supersede any existing valid law, and accordingly, where a clause repealing a prior law is inserted in an act, which act is unconstitutional and void, the provision for the repeal of prior laws will fall with it and will not be permitted to operate as repealing such prior laws. A contract which rests on an unconstitutional statute is void and creates no obligation to be impaired by subsequent legislation. These general principles apply to the constitutions as well as to the laws of the several states insofar as they are repugnant to the Constitution and laws of the United States. And then that's section 117.
Okay. Now go to 118.
Okay.
It's right after that.
Yeah. Protection of rights under unconstitutional laws. The general rule is that an unconstitutional act of the legislature protects no one. Duh. Yeah. It is said that all persons are presumed to know the law, meaning that ignorance of the law excuses no one. Consequently, if any person acts under an unconstitutional statute, the general rule is that he does so at his peril and must take the consequences. It has been declared that an unconstitutional act cannot operate to create an office, and any department of government exceeding the limits of its constitutional power acts wholly without authority and can confer no authority on others. But this doctrine is not enforced rigorously, and it is generally recognized that until a statute has been declared unconstitutional, it is sufficient to confer on an officer acting under it such color of title as will constitute him an officer de facto. Whether an unconstitutional act of the legislator is sufficient to form okay, we cut off right there.
Yeah, if you want the rest of it, you can go to the book. The book is in OneDrive, Constitutional Law. Yeah, I just took those excerpts from the book. But that says that if you're operating under an unconstitutional statute or law, and within that 22-page PDF, I have the 14th Amendment statute in there as well, so people can see that it was put in statutorily. So it tells you that right there, you do so at your own peril. Yeah. If you want to try to enforce fraud, then guess what? You get the consequences and repercussions of it. Now, that's the rule book that the courts go by, that the judges go by. They know this already. The Constitutional Law reprinted from Case Law Volume 6 was published in 1915. And right after that, I have American Jurisprudence Volume 16, Second Edition, subsection 195, which says the same thing, just subsection 117 in Constitutional Law, Volume 6. 102 years later, and that was in American Jurisprudence Volume 16, Second Edition, subsection 195, was published in 2017. So 102 years later, the knowledge and the information and the rule is still applied. You see where I'm going with this in regards to the 14th Amendment.
Yes.
So everything that they have predicated, all the contracts are dead. The birth certificate, dead. Social Security card, dead. Passport, dead. Driver's license, dead. All of them are dead. They're dead contracts. Because they're all adhesion contracts based on the 14th Amendment, which we now know is fraud and which was never valid validly adopted according to the various clauses of adoption of how amendments are made in the Constitution for the United States of America, 1787. So that lets you know they've been operating in fraud now 150 years.
Yeah.
They've been pushing this fraud for 150 years, 1868, 2018. So this is the reason why I tell the people to get those documents under seal, because the moment you present it under seal, it falls under rules of evidence 902. And it shows that, hey, all of this is fraud. And because you're forcing this on me, under threat, duress, and coercion, that I have a right to sue you. Because you're creating a hindrance and an undue burden on me, which is not supported by law.
Yeah.
So you have some Moors out there, who call themselves scholars of jurisprudence, and supposedly they won all of these cases and things of that nature, pushing the 14th Amendment.
Wow.
I'm not gonna embarrass them, but they're pushing it.
Wow.
And if they listen to this, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that's a fraud. So you're telling our people to go with the fraud. So do you have to go into a court to declare your nationality and to adopt your title, your blood-born title? No, you don't. Noble Drew Ali didn't have to do that. He told you about the 14th Amendment. It was unnecessary.
Yeah.
You just got to be who you are. That's it. Be who you are and proclaim it and let the world know. Because anything that's coursing through your veins that you have a blood birthright to, no man can stand in the way of it anyway. The author of the blood is the Most High Creator of the heavens and earth, whom I call Yahweh Ulutumari Amen Allah. Whatever is yours by blood, you don't have to ask anybody for permission, to take possession of it. It's yours automatically. It's a blood birthright. So Trump knows all of these things. Only thing he's actually doing is just making the record of him disavowing that portion, but it was already disavowed ab initio. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he knows this. He's been knowing this. And if he's a Mason, he knows the history of the so-called Negro, Black, Colored, African American, Latino, and these various other misnomers that they have us classified as. He already knows that. He's just basically, making a public statement. But it's already been disavowed. It's disavowed by the Georgia General Assembly, the Louisiana General Assembly, and the Congressional Record. Read into the record.
Yeah.
Now, he just can't come out and say, the 14th Amendment, was never ratified. He can't do that. He'll put himself in jeopardy. Why? Because all banking currently is hinged on the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
It's hinged on you being a citizen, or what is assumed to be that you are a citizen. And not only that you cannot question the federal debt, meaning that whoever the United States owes, his citizens cannot question.
Mm-hmm.
So that, as you can see, the bankers have a keen interest in keeping that fraud going with the 14th Amendment. Because you can never come up and question, hey, where's my gold? Where's my silver? Hey, where is my full rights to payment in regards to the labor that is extracted from me at these corporations, as well as these state and federal corporations? Why is DHS and all these various other child trafficking agencies able to come into my home and take my children?
Yeah.
All of that is predicated on keeping the fraud of the 14th Amendment alive. And Donald Trump knows that.
Yeah.
So that right there is one of the reasons he's making his decision on what they call birthright citizenship. Now, let's talk about the migrants for a minute. The migrants have a right. They already have a birthright citizenship to the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
Borders are man-made. The Most High Creator of the heavens and earth didn't make borders, imaginary lines. What was allowed, according to the laws of the Most High Creator of the heavens and earth, Yahweh Ulutumari Amen Allah, within what we call the 42 laws of Mayat, which is also known as later transcribed in what was called the Mosaic Code, is landmarks and boundary stones. That's what's allowed and permissible to say what land or whose land this is via the landmark or the boundary stone. Well, though all of those people, man, are from Amaruca, and so they have a right if they want to travel from the south to the north. They have a right to come in on the land. Why? Because the whole land belongs to them as well. But there's one problem. They're traveling under a colorable status because all of those so-called nations that they traveled from were incorporated, on the landmass known as Amaruca, which was first claimed by Hanno the Navigator through annexation from the north to the south. So they're traveling colorably, and they're traveling under ignorance of the law. You see what I'm saying? Which it excuses no one. So the sad part about it is a lot of them will suffer due to their ignorance. But if we go back to Hosea, the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge."
So Moorish American nationality would apply to them too, as well, like Hondurans,
Yes.
Belizeans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would. Because
go ahead.
Yes, because they're born within the dominions of the empire. And not only that, if you were to do a DNA test, a lot of men are going to come up with the O-type blood, with the Paleo-American Negroid coursing through their veins, as well as the Proto-Mongoloid as well. So a lot of those people are dark as you and I, if not dark.
Yeah.
They're our cousins. So yes, it would apply to them. But they're stuck up underneath their corporate inception, just like our people up here are stuck up underneath the fraud of the 14th Amendment.
Yeah. Would you say that the various temples should be sealing these documents and filing suit?
The temple can file suit. They can file suit off of Chapter 47, supported by Prince Uriel Bay's documents of what he put in at the Library of Congress, and I have those documents on my website as well, showing who are the de jure owners of the land. And that's why Noble Drew Ali told you don't get rid of your Bible. Why? Because the Quran, what he said, the great Quran of Muhammad of Mecca, where you read the Quran confirms the prophets of the Old Testament, and it also confirms the teachings of Isa, or Yeshua HaMashiach. So, can they file suit? Yes, they can. Because they're making decisions, because these corporations called states are making decisions on property that they don't own.
Yeah.
The state, the original de jure state, and I've gone back through the United States statutes at large and saw the statutory inception and creation of these various states. And if you look in there, it's spelled according to the proper rules of English grammar, upper and lower case, proper noun. Okay? What they have now are Admiralty Maritime de facto corporations under military jurisdiction. So they are not the real state. And all you have to do to find that out is go and read Government Printing Office Writing Style Guide I have in the language folder in the OneDrive. I have 2008 version and 2016 version. And it tells you that. It tells you how proper nouns are supposed to be addressed. And we're talking about a person, a place, or a thing. So if it's not spelled according to that, then what exactly is it? It's not the organic land mass of the statutory created trusteeship, what we call today a state, which is a subsidiary of the usufruct known as the United States. So, what exactly are we dealing with? We're dealing with a maritime corporation under military admiralty jurisdiction. And all of this is in their stuff. This is their stuff. Yeah. I'm not making any of this up. People can go and read it and do their own due diligence. I have it in the OneDrive. you know. So, with that being stated, yes, the temple can sue. The temple can sue, you know, but they have to come in as who they are in regards, you know, to the land. And not only that, use Prince Uriel Bay's document as well as genetic blood birthright. That's why I'm a proponent for genetics. Because once the blood is on the table, there's really nothing else to be said. You know, and you can charge them with fraud because, and let's just think about it. What you read earlier under Constitutional Law, Reprint Case Law, Volume 6, subsection 117, it said that any tribunal that made a judgment on an unconstitutional ruling on an unconstitutional act or statute as if it is legitimate, what did it call that tribunal? It called them incompetent. Yep. Did it not say that?
Yeah.
Now, how many cases?
Tribunal, yep.
Yeah, so if you're incompetent, that means you're not fit to do the job. You're not even fit man to even be heard from. So how many cases have the Supreme Court of the United States made in regards to the 14th Amendment?
Wow. Yeah.
That means your highest court in the land is incompetent. It's incompetent. And if you have not gone back to correct the errors of the former representatives of that higher court, you're operating on incompetence.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the pushback would be from bringing this, to light?
You want my honest opinion?
Sure, go ahead.
Killings, murder.
Yeah.
Murder. Because you can't stand against the black and white. You see it for yourself. It's written right there. So, being that it would upset the flow of economics, because the whole economic system is predicated on that fraud, murder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they couldn't take it into a court and do anything with it. All of the courts have used the 14th Amendment, so they're deemed incompetent. Every last one of them. Mm-hmm. They're deemed incompetent. So more than likely it would be murder. And how do we know that? There's a case. It's called the Jerome Daly versus First National Bank of Montgomery. I think that's the name of it. 1969. The Credit River Township decision, and it was done by a justice of the peace. They had a jury and everything, and there was a guy who was an attorney who was going against the bank, and he had challenged the bank on the fraud of the loan. Well, he ended up winning the case, even though it was done by a justice of the peace, but the justice of the peace made his ruling based upon the Constitution. And the thing dealing with the port, gold and silver and all of that type of stuff is a pretty interesting case. But by him making that ruling, he was killed 6 months later. The judge was. Wow. They killed him. Yeah. They found his body in a lake, shot full of poison. Wow. Yeah, they killed him. And then federal district court, and they overturned the case. And Jerome Daly was disbarred. But this is what we're dealing with, man. These people do not deal with law. I tell them all the time, the democracy doesn't deal with law. They don't even have a constitution. The democracy doesn't have a constitution. You can't adopt a constitution for the United States of America. Why? Because democracy is not written anywhere in it. You got to go by the letter of the law in regards to the contract. So they try to say a democratic republic. No, you can't say that because that's not part of the terms, conditions, stipulation, and agreement of the contract known as Constitution for the United States of America. It's in black and white. It's a republic. So no matter how you try to spin it, they don't have a constitution. So they operate by what they call the law of the gun. And there's a maxim of law Bouvier Dictionary of Law 1856 that states, laws are silent amidst arms. I'll say it again. Laws are silent amidst arms. Basically what they're saying is, yeah, I see the law and I know what it says, but I got this pistol, so who's the law?
Yeah, that's how it's run, man.
You know?
Yeah. Wow.
And then you got these people running around screaming that, this is a democracy, you can't do that, fool. You just keep giving them power. You speak your power away. You talking your power away. So they abolished the 14th Amendment. Let's say they go in and abolish the 14th Amendment in regards to birthright citizenship. Well, you can't grandfather a fraud. You can't go back and say, these group of people, except for these people born in, you cannot predicate a clause on a fraud. If it's void ab initio, you have nothing to anchor it on. So now what is that going to do? For Europeans, Caucasians, they're calling themselves white. Well, white was a British Parliament statutory creation shortly after Bacon's Rebellion. So they don't even know that they're putting themselves right back up underneath the crown. They're putting themselves right back up underneath the crown. Black was a British Parliament statutory creation as well. So by these people using these terms, they don't even realize, man, that you're calling yourself crown property. So that means you have to have a nationality. Europeans, they got to have a nationality. They're scared of nationality because why? Because it's going to tell exactly where you're from. Not just American, no, Scottish American, Irish American, Italian American, Danish American, Norwegian American, Swedish American, et cetera, English American, So you're going to have a nationality. The only ones who are the de jure people of the land would be those that's called Moors. Now, those that want to stay Indian, they try to say, well, we was Indians before we was Moors. I see that foolish argument as well. They need to learn Latin and read the Gov't verses, because I pointed that out several times on Facebook too. Indian comes from Latin "Dios," meaning without God. In Spanish, it's called Los Indios, the godless. Later on, shortened to Indios, but and later on, anglicized to Indian. But its inception is "Sine Dios," Latin, without God. So that's in the Gov't verses and the Romanus Pontifex and all of those type things. That's why it said, when you go to these lands, they said they're to be treated as heathens because they're "Sine Dios," they're without God. Now it tells you why a lot of our people, our ancestors, were put to the sword when the Spanish came over here. They were carrying out the Romanus Pontifex and the Gov't verses. Reduce them to slavery. They have no rights to property. Do with them as you will, because they're outside of the grace of God. Paper bull. So, "Sine Dios" to "Los Indios," the Indios to Indians.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for everybody out there that's, trying to claim that tribal status and run with it, I hope you're listening.
All of this should be linguistically researched and confirmed. Of course, you have to have some understanding of Latin. The Phoenicians were nothing but a conglomerate of Ugarites, some Hittites, Moabites, Amorites, those people in the Eastern Mediterranean who became very good at seafaring. They later, the Canaanites, later on they became known as the Carthaginians, Cartadas. They founded Carthage. Okay, Carthage later on settled Iberia. They became known as the Punic Iberians. Punic comes from Tunisium. Tunisium is nothing but Phoenician. Same group of people who later on, who colonized Morocco as early as the Phoenician expedition and had annexed it underneath their later kinsmen or their later descendants, the Carthaginians. So Morocco came out of that empire. They're a trust baby. They are a trust baby in regards to the land. If anybody know about a trust fund baby, that's what Morocco is. It's a trust fund baby. They inherited the land of their heirs or the interests of their heirs. You know, now you Soli can never supersede you Sanguiner. You know, we've been here for 100,000 years, as you saw earlier in the conversation. I walked you all the way down from millions of years all the way down 40,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if you Soli can never supersede you Sanguiner. You Soli operates in regards to nations and empires as they go into other lands, who actually, man, has a claim on this land. So that's how those calling themselves Indians really need to do their research to protect themselves. No, it's not disavowing you of you Sanguiner's heritage. That's in your blood.
Yeah.
You know, but for your international protection, when you're dealing with other nations or nation-like constructs, you need to protect yourself in a nation-like manner.
Yeah.